intelligent luxury really is being able to take the output that you've received from the authentic inputs that you've given and then create
what really speaks to you.
What really speaks to you, because then you're still authentic.
And intelligent.
So
I tell the students, I want you to go out and use the models that's available to you, but not one model. I want you to use 5 different options.
Wow.
I want you to compare and contrast. Being a woman in the world of technology is now an advantage because you can bring all aspects of being feminine energy into the world where it always has been masculine. We are in such a busy world right now. It's like, I'm on time, hurry up, move on to the next thing. Imagine if you had that time to actually pause, sit, reconnect, have a cup of coffee and genuinely be interested in people.
For me, luxury is when someone anticipates what I need. How many of us are like, wow, how did you even know that was something that I was going to ask for?
I think the choice is what is luxury.
That's beautiful.
Us.
It's almost like an artistic choice, right? It's a creative choice of, do I choose this to make me better? The most fun that I'm having with AI right now is sort of the self-discovery that you get through the experimentation.
Either you jump in and get your hands dirty, or if you sit on the sideline and wait for the train to come to pick you, that train might not show up.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Asha Saxena. I'm a tech entrepreneur, professor at Columbia University, a best-selling author for The AI Factor and The Digital Human Advantage.
I'm Julie Faupel, CEO and founder of Realm Global, a community for the most elite real estate professionals in the world.
So this podcast is going to touch upon artificial intelligence and luxury. But most importantly, it's going to talk about how it's redefining luxury in today's day and age.
I'm so excited to learn more about how we protect our most precious assets, our relationships, using technology and artificial intelligence.
Really think about the culture and, most importantly, the human potential. I welcome you all to continue listening and participating. Welcome to Intelligent Luxury. We have our guest, Laura Monroe. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. It's so great to be here with you, Asha.
I know, I'm excited.
I have so many questions for you.
I'm looking forward to it.
First of all, you are a woman that is in technology, leading in the forefront of AI. How do you feel like your role is really fitting into the conversation? Women are often known as the more empathetic, the more nurturing, the more, the emotions that come with the complexity of being a woman in this industry, I think is a fascinating dichotomy to what we're seeing with AI. Can you speak a little bit about how you're fitting into that?
Oh my God, what a great question, Laura. First of all, I've been in the technology field for almost 3 decades.
Can't believe
So I've been in the technology field when I was the only woman, and at times even now when I'm the only woman in the room. And the discussions are about technology and about business and about growth, but you don't see a lot of women there. You're absolutely right. You're prejudged because you're a woman. You think that women are more compassionate, women are going to be more softer and will not take things more seriously because they have so much more compassion than men. Men are focused on revenue and growth. But you and I know that women equally focus on revenue and growth, but they do it compassionately. But it doesn't mean that they're not focused on the end result. When we talk about technology, I worked with databases. I worked with, large organizations like Oracle and Microsoft where we were implementing databases, data warehouses, CRMs, ERP. But we now have transitioned from traditional technology to really AI that is insightful, intelligent. And the people who are going to stand out are the people who understand human behavior, human sentiment. And I think that's where women are going to, if you keep that bias, which I think we should not have a bias because we have the traits, the feminine and masculine trait in everybody, if it's a man or a woman. But the masculine trait has been super strong around technology, but the feminine traits, even if you're a man, you could have a feminine trait.
Absolutely.
The feminine traits are going to be highlighted with the technology like AI because you need to understand the bias in technology, the ethics of AI and the data, understanding responsible AI, the transparency, the explainability of where the data is coming. All the feminine skills will be required to succeed in the world of AI. It's
I
not
love
just
that.
a technology.
Yeah.
It is the technology that is going to penetrate into everything we do, everything from our
fascinating.
research, our homework, our, how we buy a house or how we garden our plants,
Mm-hmm.
And I was giving an example early on is like when you're thinking about landscape, and I was like, I'm clueless about design.
Right.
And if you tell me how to do your landscape or your interiors, I hire professionals to do that. But I remember hiring a landscape designer, make an appointment, going to come in 2
Right.
weeks, and then they're going to take it back and then send me some ugly
Rendering
rendering of
something.
something which I don't like. And so I just take a picture now, upload it to my AI designer, and it gives me things that I can pick and choose from.
Right.
And this time I actually sent that design to my landscape designer and said, this is what I want.
Yeah.
Can you do something for me? So think about
I
it.
love that.
Right?
Yeah.
So being a woman in the world of technology is now an advantage because
I
you
agree.
can bring all aspects of being feminine energy into the world where always has been masculine energy.
Right. And that's such a fascinating direction for this all to go. But knowing how much you've been involved in the data side of that, where does intelligent luxury is it data intelligence or is it emotional intelligence
Yeah.
that is really going to fit the luxury mindset a little bit better?
I just spoke about the feminine side, and then feminine side is always, let me take care of you, right? That's what
Right.
we connect the feminine energy. My mom takes care of me and the whole family, wants to get to know my neighbors and what kind of dessert they would like. So if I make a dessert, right, I
Right.
invite my friends who are going to enjoy that food. So I think the feminine energy is so critical in this age of technology.
Right.
So if you have your female professionals in your office, make sure you tap onto that because that's what is required. When you talk about intelligence, data is the core. When you talk about artificial intelligence, if you don't have the data, the models don't become powerful. So
Right.
how does the AI work? It actually looks at the data, the wealth of data, the big data we call it, small data or big data, and it tries to find patterns and it tries to
Okay.
create correlations. So when it's creating correlations, so let's say if they find out that Laura keeps buying business professional books on Amazon, Amazon recommendation engine will always give you books
Right.
that might interest you.
Fascinating.
Right? Netflix did the same thing. It said, you like watching this producer or this director or this storyline. These are some other recommendation for you.
Right.
So the data tells you the behavior of the person, So,
Fascinating.
so when you think about the models, so these models are learning. So you have structured data and you have unstructured data. You have data which is already in, rows and columns, and unstructured data like images. Now we are going in the world where AI can actually look at all that data, make sense of the data, and be able to give you answers. And so when you talk about intelligence, intelligence is the output
Got it.
the data
Yeah.
that is all getting worked behind the scenes.
Right.
And so data is really critical. So it's really important to understand what data are you working with. So data is a critical piece of artificial intelligence. So you have structured data and you also have unstructured data. You have structured data, which is in rows and columns. You can make
Right.
sense of it. But you have unstructured data, which is images and phone messages and your x-ray reports. But what the intelligence is, when it can take all that data, make sense of that data and give you results and gives you intelligence. So the intelligence is the outcome of working with all that data and having these models really sit and digest this data and give you the output of what makes sense from all this information and give you the output.
Right.
The great example is like you're going to work and you are going to have a meeting with somebody. All the interaction you've had with that person through your email, through your chat, through your any conversation, your calendar, you can actually say, give me a summary of everything I've done with this person and the intelligence that gives you. It comes out of that.
Right.
And how you use it then. The system can give you information, but how you use it to continue evolving and actually addressing the problem is on you.
Right. Now that brings me to my next dying question, which is, I see people out in my field, which is real estate, and certainly in the technology side of real estate, really try to create since they can do this now, create other technology that they think can reverse engineer almost anything through AI. And it's kind of interesting to see how people will touch on the human side, but then go just as far to be able to reverse engineer a process of trying to understand or interpret the data that we're getting from those very, it's almost like the partners in your strategy. Are they really helping you create the right kind of engineered human connectedness that's really going to be meaningful in the future? That's a big question.
No,
But I think that for people that are really trying to reverse engineer that from a business standpoint, how do you learn to know when to be involved in that side of it versus let real human authenticity really drive the right decisions? It's a big question. I get that.
No, I think it's a great question, because re-engineering is okay if the humans are involved and you know where to draw the line.
Right.
Really understanding, and that's why it's a human in the loop. Keep the human in the loop as you design the AI system.
Okay.
Now, for somebody, you're re-engineering it because you're trying to take out all the manual work. It's fine.
Right.
Don't do the mandate routine work, which is tedious and it's taking time.
Right.
You re-engineer the whole process because you're trying to understand, how can I save time so I can do something bigger, better, and create that human connection? So let's say if you re-engineer your entire process of outreach to your customers, that's okay as long as you take that time to create those touch points.
Right.
So how you use that technology to become a better evolved professional, that you are serving your customers in authentic manner to provide them more value. Now that you have the time, can you actually do the touch points and create the connection and give them additional value and better options because you have that time to continue serving?
Right, to go deeper and be a better connected human being.
Exactly.
Right.
And somebody said to me, oh, we're going to have so much time. What are we going to do about it? Right? We're going to have so much time because all the manual work is now getting done by the AI.
Right.
What will we do? And I said, we need to now invest in ourselves to say, how do we provide value everywhere we go?
Right.
Because now we have time to invest in ourselves to learn better. As I said earlier, that now you can actually learn anything you want.
Right.
You can learn about the design, you can learn about the music, you can learn about the art, you can learn about investments, you can learn about science. You're meeting a doctor, you can have a conversation about his profession because you can invest that time that you're saving by re-engineering your processes to really invest in your customers and create authentic relationships. We are in such a busy world right now. It's like, I'm on time, hurry up, move on to the next thing. Imagine if you had that time to actually pause, sit, reconnect, have a cup of coffee, and genuinely be interested in people.
Right.
I think that's where the value comes of this technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the other thing too is you can't really reverse engineer true human authenticity.
Yes.
Do you think there's a danger for us a little bit in that we see AI right now is that partner that's always on our side, the partner that is there to give us the very biased, maybe not a very objective pushback or sort of here's a different way of thinking about it, sort of challenging us.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of information that it's disseminating for us.
Right.
But is it creating the right kind of pushback, allowing us to then think even deeper? Is that something that you program? Is that part of something that you think we might lose in the interaction?
I think
with
we
people?
won't lose it for the people who are curious already. People who push themselves to evolve, those people will not lose it. Because we use that, like you and I are sitting down here, if we want to look at the large language model and say, what are the great questions around this topic? We can go back and look at the questions, but we said out of the 10 questions we got, all 10 questions don't make sense. There are 2 or 3 that would make sense that really speak to what I want to talk about.
Right.
So yes, we can do our research.
But you might just be disseminating and prioritizing what it gives you in the output, right?
Exactly.
So it's input, output.
And it's
then
how we
prioritizing.
choose. I teach at Columbia University. and my students want to use AI, and I know they're going to use AI
Yeah.
because when they graduate, they're going to be using AI for their work life.
Right.
I, in fact, teach a class called AI Factor, which is my book, and now I have a class at Columbia. And when I teach the class, I tell the students, I want you to go out and use the models that's available to you, but not one model. I want you to use 5 different options.
Wow.
And then I want you to compare and contrast.
Oh, that's perfect.
And I want you to tell me what you challenged when it gave you the answer.
Right.
And what prompts you used, what questions you asked. So it's not just about report anymore. So we have to change how we teach our kids. You know, how my students are learning because they need to go use these tools when they're in the workplace.
Absolutely.
I want them to tell me why they're using, which one they're using, what questions they're asking, how they're going deeper. And I'm having them debate that, which I think that's what we need. We all will have access to the same tools.
Right.
But one will evolve better than the other.
Right. So what I love is that I've just learned from you right now is that for me, intelligent luxury really is being able to do exactly that. It's being able to master and take the output that you've received from the authentic inputs that you've given and then create,
What really speaks to you.
What really speaks to you, because then you're still authentic.
And intelligent.
And intelligent. Exactly. So to me, I think for luxury, as we get to that intelligent luxury piece, that authenticity is not going to be replaced by AI.
Exactly.
That it will simply make us sharper, deeper, more probably coherent in that sense of authenticity. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I want to add on to that because what I want to say is that a lot of people talk about, what does luxury? Luxury
Right.
is access, old money. Luxury is having
Discretion and privacy and exclusivity.
scarcity
Yeah.
and only limited brands and you only have access to it because there's only so much. But to me, luxury is getting redefined. Luxury is the intelligence to know how to lead, how to trust, how to make sure you make choices. What are you consuming?
Right.
That's luxury because now you have abundance of knowledge.
Right.
You have abundance of creativity. How do you choose? And I think the choice is what is luxury
That's
for us.
beautiful. That's actually really beautiful because I think that when you can make that it's almost like an artistic choice, right?
Yes.
It's a creative choice of, do I choose this to make me better?
Yes,
Do I
exactly.
choose this to change the way that I do business? Do I choose this to meet more needs and anticipate them a little bit more? Because when I think of luxury, I think for me, luxury is when someone anticipates what I need. How many of us are like, wow, how did you even know that that was something that I was going to ask for or need? And I think that when you can still be that person in that moment
Yes.
with the data that you've talked about, then that solves what I think is a big question for a lot of people, which is, I get that it can make me productive.
Yes.
I get that it can make me think about broader things and give me the right answers to specific prompts. But I think when we can start to really help people understand that it could be you on steroids, if you're
Exactly.
choosing and using choice, then that's a really exciting place to be.
It really is. It's an exciting place because we have these superpower in our back. We all have it. The superpower in our back pocket.
Right.
But how do we each use that superpower to stay ahead of time? I'll give you an example, really great story. I was talking to, so I run an organization called World Leaders in Data and AI, WILDA. Our members are Fortune 500 C-suite leaders. And one of the CTOs of a large insurance company was telling me, he said, Asha, we have spent best of best, team of 9 people who are senior architects, top engineers, and we gave them 295 processes to re-engineer. And we said, go back and do it and show it to us. It's been 9 months and we are still on phase 1 of that
Wow.
project
Wow.
because they're not using AI because they want to do it with their experience. So they're putting together this architecture and they're discussing it. He said, I hired an Ivy League intern and gave him the license for Claude and said, he didn't tell them, he didn't tell the big team. And he said, see what can you do with this 295 processes. And he went on vacation, came back, A few weeks later, within 6 weeks, this intern had all those 295 processes redesigned
Wow.
and shared with the CTO. CTO took that use case and went to the CEO. And now, what's going to happen to those 9 people who are on the top? They're making top salaries.
Right.
And here, intern, who's making the bare minimum, actually did the work in 6 weeks.
Wow.
So the lesson is
Yep.
that if you are scared, I mean, you could be super smart.
Mm-hmm.
And you're engineers.
Yep.
You would think that you should be using AI. But if you don't use AI, the people who are using AI will replace you pretty quickly. So you don't have to worry about AI replacing you. You have to worry about the people who are already using AI might
Brilliant.
replace you.
That is the perfect way to say that.
And
That
you know
is.
what? And so our listeners have to think about either you jump in and get your hands
Experiment,
dirty,
Get your hands dirty.
or if you sit on the sideline and wait for the train to come to pick you, that train might not show up.
Yeah. I think the most fun that I'm having with AI right now is sort of the self-discovery that you get through the experimentation. When you can have a conversation, for me, it's about strategy. You know, I love to kind of play chess with a business problem or, you know, look at it in a million different ways to kind of decide which path to go on. But I think what's really fascinating is what you learn through that self-discovery of, you know, I can ask this a different way and go down a completely different path. Obviously, you get to the point where you need to control it. But I think that what's really fun is you're going to learn so much about yourself in that process. And I think you do become that personal development kinds of comes out through that. And I think that's an exciting piece. And so for those that are out there, the listeners that are out there worrying about, like you said, the competitor, or they're worrying about the other person that's going to come in, but think of that superpower that you're going to have. Think about what you can do to your own depth and your own authenticity when you have more to bring to a conversation. When you have more, like you're mastering more things, you can speak to math better, you can speak to the data better, you can speak to all of these things more. And that's where I think that you're really nailing such inspiration, because people can go down either a negative path with it or overwhelmed or I'm not going to do it. But I think with your such an optimistic view of where and what we can do with this, that it's going to be fascinating for those that take that road.
What I want to talk about next is really think about where we are using. You know, I would love to hear where you're using AI in your day-to-day life. But I want to share with you where I'm using AI in my day-to-day life. You know, I'm a CEO coach for CEOs who are backed by private equity. And private equity puts a lot of pressure on CEOs to show returns. And I was having a conversation this morning with one of the CEOs, and he said, I'm doing a sales kickoff. And the opening presentation, I want to talk about A, B, and C. And he says, what do you think? What should I say? And I said, I want to hear what your plans are. And tell me in detail what you're thinking. So he went on. He said, I'm thinking about A, B, and C. This is what I'm going to do in kickoff. What do you think? I said, I will tell you, but I will tell you the last. Then I opened up ChatGPT. I said, let's find out what ChatGPT recommends. We looked at ChatGPT. He said A, B, and C. ChatGPT gave D, E, and F. So completely different answers. 3 different suggestions. So I read it to him and he said, oh my God, I didn't think about that. Yes, that's a great idea. Yes, that's a great idea. Maybe I won't do the third one. So then I shared with him what I thought was of value. Which was different than what ChatGPT said, which was different than what he was thinking. And I went and I said, these are the 3 things I would do. And so he said, that's amazing. And he took tons of notes and he said, I'm going to go execute on this. So how did I use ChatGPT? I mean, I could have just done coaching the way I do coaching and coached him on what to do. But what I did, I gave him an additional resource. I said, I like what you said, A, B, and C. I like C. Focus on that. This is what it's recommending. Take what you want to take. I recommend these 3 things. Take what you want to take. And now mix it.
Now mix it together.
You be the intelligent consumer of this information and deploy it the way you feel you would be the most effective.
That's, so well put.
So same tool, I could have used it or not used it. I had it in my back pocket. I took it out and I used it. So I think it's your choice on day-to-day basis how you use this technology.
100%. And I think for me, I mean, in strategy, there are a lot of different ways to, sort of craft a message or think strategically, think the long way through something, because a lot of times we think tactically, but we don't necessarily think strategically to achieve certain goals.
Right.
So for me, I find it's important to wear different hats. So in marketing, there's product marketing, there's go-to marketing, there's so many different ways that you can apply different strategies.
Yeah.
And so for me, where I use it is to create GPTs that can lead with a certain intelligence and voice, and then synthesize that through something like a Claude, which speaks to me a little bit more in terms of my right brain. It gives me a little bit more depth. It gives me a little bit more artistry in the language. And then I synthesize through there. So I have GPTs for growth. I have GPTs for strategy. I have GPTs for luxury. I have strategy. I have GPTs for,
for
executive
leadership
for design and for all of those things. But I think when I can synthesize between these different things and then overlay things that go a little bit deeper and can brainstorm a few more ways for me to think about things, then I'm doing the same thing.
Exactly.
I'm kind of going, that nails it for me. That sounds like the realm voice. That sounds like luxury in the sense of where our membership, because what I do is representative of a group of people that are in luxury, not just one person, not just me. I'm deciding for a brand.
Yeah.
I'm deciding for a company. I'm taking different voices and synthesizing their needs or their marketplaces or their customers or their price points and being able to relate different messaging to them that touches them in very different ways, emotionally versus data versus markets versus client, facing. The way I do it is I just kind of have to break it down into different buckets and then synthesize it.
I love it. I think that's what we have to do, is take the pieces and use it where it works for us.
Yes.
So Laura, with that, I want to come to an end.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming to the show. And thank you for everyone else who's watching and listening. Continue taking the baby step. I think it's all about taking small steps, creating small wins, but you need to start the journey because AI is here to stay. And the more you engage with the artificial intelligence tools, applications, the better it will start learning about you and giving you results. So with that, good luck on your journey. I'll see you next time. Asha Saxena, your host for Intelligent Luxury.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Intelligent Luxury. Asha and I are delighted to continue on this journey with you as we continue to unpack the soul of the transaction and the intelligence of the technology.
At its best, luxury is intentional. So are the ideas you choose to engage with. If this episode inspires you or informs you, continue watching, continue listening, continue learning, and be on the path of growth. Thank you for listening. This is Intelligent Luxury.